about the future of Ukraine are possible without the United States?
Сприймає безпекові гарантії.
Okay, it sounds like we're getting our link back, but if you want to answer some of these questions while we're waiting, and we might have a show of hands in the room. Who thinks that security guarantees are possible for Ukraine without the US? Yes? Show of hands? Wow. Okay, for those watching at home, there's about 6 hands in the room. So obviously, those who think security guarantees require the United States, hands up. Okay, there's not an overwhelming majority. I thought that would lead to an overwhelming majority, but it's not quite the case. Certainly more, but not everyone. Okay, but on Slido, the question is very emphatically answered. No, the US is irreplaceable, 62%. Obviously, we'll be asking, we hope, once that link is restored, President Zelensky about some of these issues. Okay, what should Ukraine's priority following a ceasefire or peace agreement be? We have a couple of options on our Slido poll if you all want to have a look at that on your phones as well. The answers are strengthening Ukraine's defence forces. Should they be investing in their infrastructure and industrial base? Pursuing NATO? Difficult. EU integration? Or holding elections? What do you think about this one? Okay, this is somewhat surprising. Oh no, this is the answer I thought would come out on top. Strengthening Ukraine's defence forces. But it's running pretty even here. Investing in infrastructure and industrial base. Obviously, a lot of panels will be looking at this topic. And finally, let's go to what I hope will generate a nice word cloud for us. When you think about the future of Ukraine, what's the one word that comes to your mind? If we could see that. And President Zelensky, if you can hear us, we're looking very much forward to hearing what you have to say once this link is restored.
I don't know, do you hear me?
Ah, President Zelensky, we can hear you, and it's wonderful to hear you.
I don't know where we stopped. I don't know. I'm so sorry. We will try just to continue. I will try to continue with the speech, and then if we will not have questions, problems, yes, and technical problems, we will continue with questions, as I understood.
No problem. President Zelensky, no apology necessary if you would like to start again. We were very looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
I think you remember the beginning. You're smart and young people. I think you remember. So I'm just want to continue. So really, 12 days ago, we completed the final stage of our operation called, as I said, Spider Web. And probably no one in this room missed it. And inexpensive drones, part of a low-cost operation by Ukraine's security service, hit something very, very expensive for Russia in a very sense of the word, strategic bombers at distant military airfields. And it was a completely legitimate operation targeting the very aircraft Russia used to terrorize our country and to send a message of threat to NATO. And these were not just similar strategic bombers, but the exact same ones Russia had used to simulate missile strikes on NATO territory. In total, as I said, 41 Russian military aircraft were destroyed or heavily damaged, and all of these happened almost live for the world to see. And it clearly shows how the technologies of war are changing. 10 years ago, such a strike would have been unimaginable. Today, we can't even imagine what kind of strikes a country might be able to carry out 10 years from now. But one principle is clear. No country can afford to stay behind in technological development when it comes to security. Here is another example. Statistics. Today, on June 12th, in the 4th year of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, our military has recorded more than 1 million Russian casualties, killed and wounded. This is the price Putin and those like him are willing to pay for their sick geopolitical fantasies. 1 million losses, and still they are doing everything to avoid ending this war. They even ignore the United States and President Trump, who have repeatedly called for a ceasefire and an end to the killings. Russia does not really care about such human losses. What they do worry about are harsh sanctions, especially those against Russian oil, including a new price cap. That's what really threatens them, because it could cut off their funding for war and force them to seek peace. And they are also concerned about sanctions on the banking sector and about political isolation when Moscow is not invited to international forums, and about new joint defense efforts between Ukraine and our partners in Europe and around the world. Russia is worried about money, about so-called prestige in foreign policy, and about our resistance, but they are not concerned about the lives of 1 million of their own people. And I ask you to see this not just as another fact about dictatorships like Russia, North Korea, or Iran, but as a security challenge to all of us. We have to confront those who treat human life as worthless, just as we defend our own safety. This fight is not limited to Europe. It matters in every region nearby. When life means nothing to those in charge, then no crime is off the table, not even full-scale aggression. Dear friends, we now have very clear priorities. First, I want to thank Czechia for its initiative on ammunition supplies. It clearly showed that united efforts can really make a difference in modern warfare. We must strengthen all the forms of defense cooperation, especially those that help us become more and more technologically advanced and use drones of every kind in the air, on land, and at sea. Ukraine is ready to increase drone production by 40% in the near future, already this year. Our factories have the capacity. What we lack is financing. And this must be addressed. And I urge your countries to treat drones production with the same urgency and attention that we do. We must all be faster in drone than our enemies. Next, we should be realistic about those who brought war to Europe. You can't talk Russia into peace. But there are forms of pressure that hurt those in charge. I ask you to support a serious increase in sanctions against Russia. Our goal must be to significantly reduce Russia's oil income and financial capabilities. If Russian oil sells for no more than $30 a barrel, suddenly Moscow will start sounding peaceful. And we must shut down all the loopholes helping to fund the Russian federal budget. We need to apply enough pressure to force at least a real ceasefire. Without pressure, this will not happen. And one more thing, we should remember that respect for human life is not just a moral value, it's a security factor. That's why Our joint policy must include support for those who value life and restrictions on those who show contempt for it. This can only be done at the level of all Europe and the Euro-Atlantic community. Only together we are strong enough to defend our way of life and life itself. So I ask you to support decisions that do not leave behind European nations that deserve to be in the EU and NATO. This includes Ukraine, Moldova, Balkans nations, and others. Everyone deserves fair decisions, and I urge you to back every initiative that strengthens the global weight of the EU and NATO, because only though through real unity we can set the security conditions for our neighbors, conditions that make them safe for us and force them to act in ways that do not threaten anyone, including themselves. Thank you for your attention. Thanks for invitation. Peter, thank you very much. Happy to see you. Thank you for your support. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you so much, President Zelensky. We're so happy we got that link back up. President Zelensky has happily agreed to take a few questions. So, President, Ukraine is critical for global security. In your view, what are the forms of long-term security guarantees that would provide the strongest deterrence against Russian aggression?
Thank you for your question. Do you have the interpretation? May I ask that? Let's check.
Yes, we do, President Zelensky.
Thank you so much. First and foremost, it seems to me that I would focus on the security guarantees, how to stop the aggressor and not let the aggression come back again. So, when we discuss how to stop Putin's aggression or anybody else in the world, we see that there are a couple of factors in that. The first thing is economy, because to defeat such an army for a long time is impossible. So we must weaken Russian economy, and for that there must be sanctions, but sanctions without any conversations behind the curtains. And that is very important, to not let anyone bypass the sanctions, to introduce total sanctions. Yes, the price caps for energy, etc., but that is not the end of the story. The main thing is that everybody sticks to it. Everybody sticks to the agreements and not let bypass the sanctions, neither Global South nor some countries in Europe, so that everybody does its part of the work. If the economy weakens, then the capabilities for financing this war for Putin will narrow. Second thing is military power. We must support Ukraine as much as possible, and I thank Petr and anybody who helps, not only with the artillery initiative, but with any other initiative. Maybe this can be fully understood when everybody can answer for oneself what Ukraine means for the global security, for the security of the world. I believe that Ukraine means security guarantees for Europe today. Of course, NATO is a reliable ally, but the fact that Ukraine stands there and doesn't allow the war to spread further, that is strong security guarantees for all of Europe, and Ukraine must be strengthened, which is why second component is to strengthen the army of our state, and to strengthen and increase the production at your own territories. And that is feasible. That's feasible. The finance must be put into that to develop the technologies and to not turn a blind eye to bureaucratic inconveniences. Everybody must understand that Ukraine is an example here. I admire our army, and everybody does its part of the work, but the hardest work have those who are at the front lines, the infantry, who stands on the very first line of the battlefield, because they have the most severe losses, they have the biggest number of casualties. Those are the most courageous people, and the biggest number of wounded is at the first line of the front line. Each line is important, but the most important is the first line, because shall it fail, everything will fail. So I believe that the European society and the US, in the end of the day, have to understand that in this war, and the war that Putin started against NATO, the civilized world, and everybody, so we are all in this war, but Ukraine is the very first line of it. And shall this line fail, Putin will go further. So second point, to strengthen the army, it's not just eloquence. On this depends the security of all Europe. And third is probably political isolation. And when we say political isolation, it's not about inviting or not inviting Russia to summits, to come to them for the meetings or not. Political isolation is when everybody strictly adheres to the rules. And the rules that not only Europe, but global South as well, China, Brazil, India, etc., not maintain economic relations with Russia, not straddle between us and Russia, but make Russia cease fire, at least cease fire, to make this first step to end the war. And these are important things. I do not see such pressure from those countries as of now.
President Zelensky,
Involvement,
we are running short of time. I just wonder, in 30 seconds, if you could answer this final question. What are your non-negotiables for just peace? I'm not sure that 30 seconds will be enough to respond. I think we all must make it the way that Russia and Putin do not prevail in this war. I think that is the best security guarantee for the whole of the world, because he will never stop. Thank you. President Zelensky, thank you so much for joining us at Globsec 2025.
All the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please remain in your seats. And we're just going to acknowledge that the President of Czechia, Petr Pavel, has been with us this morning and will be leaving, and we thank Czechia's hospitality again for hosting Globsec.